We are ushering closer to Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and ultimately snow will be in the forecast before you know it. So make sure to subscribe to the channel down below so I can keep you ahead of all the winter storms and blizzards this upcoming winter. Make sure to like the video down below by giving it a thumbs up. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. We'll always get to those after the video. So let's get into the winter forecast of 2024 and 25. And what we do is we look at the climate pattern first, and we are actually in an ENSO neutral conditions right now in the equatorial Pacific, and those blue shaded colors indicate colder water temperatures. The orange and reds are warmer water temperatures. And notice we have been in ENSO neutral for the past several months, going all the way back to the summer months here of 2024. Notice how we're dipping closer to -1 here and a little bit past -5 as well. That means we are getting closer to the La Nina conditions expected for this upcoming winter. And the forecast is for a weak La Nina to take over as we go into December, January, February, and even March of 2024 and into 2025. So what does this pattern mean for the upcoming winter? Let's focus on La Nina. This is a cookie cutter La Nina, and we know that every La Nina is different. So looking here at the colder air with the more active but variable jet stream, that's your polar jet stream, pulling down that cold air from Canada and Siberia and Alaska all the way down into the northern US. That also makes it very wet across the Pacific Northwest because of the Pacific jet stream ushering in that moisture across the Pacific Northwest. We have a very wet setup for the Ohio Valley, parts of the Midwest, down there into the Mid-South, and then across the very far southern tier of the United States here from California to Florida and everywhere in between, drier and warmer conditions expected as the jet streams will be further north, and that will be taking away the moisture, but also leading to more warmer conditions this upcoming winter. Let's go back just here looking at weak La Ninas that we have had from 1981 all the way to 2010, your long-term average, and they have produced some colder air across the northern United States. The darkest blue is the much below average, the whites are normal, and then you can see it's actually also produced warmer than normal temperatures near the Gulf Coast from Louisiana into Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida before as well. And looking at precipitation, weak La Ninas actually favor much of California being very dry. So drought may begin to develop very quickly there in California this winter. Very wet it'll be across the Pacific Northwest in these weak La Nina regimes, and the Ohio Valley down into the Mid-South, including Dixie Alley, could also be pretty wet during a weak La Nina year. And also keep in mind, yes, we could have some bigger snowstorms potentially this winter in the Northeast, but also weak La Ninas favor drier weather and more average conditions across the Northeast, but drier, especially the further south you go into Virginia, the Delmarva region, the Carolinas, Georgia, and especially the Sunshine State of Florida. So let's dive into the specifics for you here in the forecast. Let's first look at your temperature forecast for December of 2024. And you can see that in the red, well above average temperatures are expected across the southern tier of the United States. It's been a very hot summer so far. It's probably going to be a very warm fall, and now we're looking at a pretty warm winter. So drought conditions are likely to expand and intensify across this region. And then you can see in the temperature forecast department up in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, Oregon, Idaho, into Montana, so you're leaning below average with those temperatures as we go into December. And like I said, it's going to be drier down across the southern United States with weaker La Nina starting to get into play. Wetter pattern up into the Pacific Northwest, parts of the northern Rockies, and then into the Midwest, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes region. We're dealing with above average precipitation as well as we go into December. And just note that above average precipitation does not always have to be snow. It could be rain, it could be ice, it could be snow, it could be all three of these things as we go into the winter months. Let's transition now to 2025. So your temperature forecast for January 2025. Colder temperatures will be more likely up here, leaning below average here across the northern United States from the northern Rockies into the upper Midwest and Great Lakes region and parts of the northern Ohio Valley. We could have what we call a polar vortex try to develop and move that cold air from Siberia down into the northern United States. We'll be keeping an eye on that, whereas a lot of the south will be well above average with our temperatures from Arizona, New Mexico, through the Lone Star State of Texas, the Sooner State of Oklahoma, all the way through Dixie Alley and along the Gulf Coast. Looking at a pretty warm January out there. Precipitation forecast, we start to get that pretty active jet stream as we have that colder air coming down from Siberia, Canada, and Alaska that we were showing you in the La Nina. I think we're going to see a lot more precipitation with those jet streams really colliding up here into the Pacific Northwest. So areas that have been so dry this summer and fall will actually be seeing a lot of precipitation in January. And also keeping an eye on an area over here as well, from interior New England, the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley vicinity, down into the mid-Mississippi Valley. We could be seeing some snowstorm potential here, maybe a mixed bag with some ice, some rain on the warmer side of these low pressure systems. And then all across the south, again, we're seeing some pretty dry conditions leaning below average with our precipitation in January. Transitioning to the temperature forecast in February 2025, again, similar to January, we likely will extend a lot of those colder air regimes from Canada, Siberia, and Alaska down into the northern U.S., so we're likely to see more leaning below average temperatures across the north, and again, well above across the south and especially the southeast. It's going to be pretty warm into February. Notice the northeast starting to warm up in February as well, and this actually may not bode well with snowstorms later in the winter. And you can see the colder low pressure systems, if they track across the mid-Atlantic into the interior New England region, the cold side could bring maybe a blizzard or a very heavy snowstorm potentially to places like the Great Lakes, the Midwest, or the Ohio Valley. The warm side could be a mixed bag of all three precipitation types: snow, rain, ice, or all rain for the coastal regions like Boston, New York City, all the way down toward Trenton. We'll be keeping an eye on that for February. We're looking at drier conditions across the southeast coast. Very dry it'll be, leaning well below average with our precipitation in California for places like Los Angeles, Las Vegas as well, up here into Phoenix. We're going to be seeing some very dry conditions in February, and leaning above average with our precipitation as well across the Pacific Northwest into February there. Now let's extend this one more month because winter does continue into early March. Temperature forecast for March 2025. Again, take this with a grain of salt because this may change a little bit, and we'll be updating you throughout the season as well. But it looks like we're going to warm up quite vastly in March across the north and also into the Midwest. We're going to have a thawing period late into the winter months. It may be later into March, but we're going to have a thawing period and then more normal temperatures across the west and the northwestern United States into March. We're hanging on to the jet streams though in the Pacific Northwest and the northern U.S., especially the Midwest, the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, maybe down toward the mid-Mississippi Valley, with some above average precipitation leaning those areas as well. And then leaning below average with our precipitation into the Pacific Southwest, parts of the southern plains, and then from the mid-Atlantic coast all the way down through the southeast coast, including Florida in March, likely leaning below average with our precipitation. So let's also look at severe weather forecasts for the entirety of the winter season of 2024 and 2025. We are likely to see some severe weather down here in traditional Tornado Alley, especially like in these areas of Dixie Alley that have seen a lot of tornadoes over the years. I just really consider this Tornado Alley, to be quite honest with you, but you can see severe weather is going to be likely in this orange shaded color, so don't be surprised at some point this winter, whether it's December, January, February, even March, we could have several severe weather episodes across this region, even in the yellow shaded color, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Oklahoma City, maybe closer towards St. Louis, the Music City in Nashville, Raleigh, North Carolina on the fringes of that, even Miami. Don't be surprised to see some severe weather events. They're possible through the winter months as we go through December and January, February, and March. Now let's take a look at the cold side of these storms. Let's look at some analogs and also look at some of the past major snowstorms in some of these analog years. Blizzard of December of 23 through the 27th of December of the year of 2009. Christmas Eve blizzard. This was a very white Christmas across the upper Midwest, down here into the Central Plains, also interior New England. But notice a lot of the southeast, the mid-Atlantic didn't see this blizzard at all. A lot of that snowfall fell across the north. Another big snowstorm with an analog year, the blizzard of December 10th through the 12th of 2010. A lot of heavy snow, a couple feet of snow in the Badger State of Wisconsin into Minnesota. The Twin Cities region got absolutely crushed by snow. Green Bay, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Wisconsin, Wausau, a lot of these areas saw a lot of snow during that blizzard. And then also looking at the Northeast, it's not impossible to get snow on big snowstorms in these analog years. The blizzard of February 8th and 9th of 2013, I know a lot of you probably remember this well. 3 feet of snow fell from areas of southern Maine through portions of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, also down into Connecticut and Long Island in New York State as well. So it's not impossible to see, but right now forecasting above average temperatures in February. Now, again, with that said, this year, even though there's above average temperatures in February, doesn't mean it's impossible to get snow, so keep that in mind. Let's look at the expected storm tracks. There's a couple of main storm tracks we're keeping an eye on this winter season. The main one that could likely bring us some big snowstorms and blizzards could be what we call the Texas low, and you can see this basically develops in New Mexico, moves across the Amarillo area, kind of pulls that moisture northward, and then that storm track lies out from St. Louis to Indianapolis. If you're along and northwest of that line, like Chicago, Milwaukee, Des Moines, Kansas City, and even Wichita, you could see some big snowstorms with this track, whereas the warm side could be bringing more severe weather. We're a mixed bag of rain, snow, and ice to portions of the Tennessee Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and up into the Northeast. Here's another storm track that is probably pretty likely this winter is a Colorado low, basically developing off the lee side of the Rockies, diving southeast for a time toward Tulsa, and then kind of lifting back north and east toward the Ohio Valley, likely toward Kentucky and West Virginia. The northern side would be with the heavy snow. Underneath that, you can see some ice, and then the rain and severe weather side on the south and eastern side of that low. That could be another storm track that we could see this winter season. So with all that taken together, heavy snowstorm confidence with snowstorms that have at least 8 inches of snow or greater, I have high confidence of that occurring. That's a 50 to 75% chance of this occurring at some point this winter, whether it's between December 1st, a meteorological winter there, all the way through the March timeframe. We'll be keeping a very close eye on that. You can see that could include areas of Grand Rapids, Michigan, Green Bay, Chicago, Milwaukee, Des Moines, all the way down to Kansas City. Also interior New England here, up toward Caribou, Maine, the Buffalo, Watertown, New York areas. We'll be keeping an eye on that. And it could be a little bit further south, like Oklahoma City and Tulsa. You guys have a medium confidence, 25 to 50% chance of seeing that snowstorm of 8 inches or more in one storm. And then lower confidence here across portions of the eastern and southern U.S. as we go through the winter. Here's my official winter forecast of 2024 and 25 regionally. Across the northern Rockies and the parts of the plains and also the Pacific Northwest, it's going to be a cooler and also a wetter winter. This could include a lot of different systems with rain, snow, especially in the higher elevations, maybe some icing events up here as well. The Pacific Southwest, like California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, very warm, very dry this winter season. Drought is really going to intensify across this region. I do expect this winter season. In the orange down here in Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Warm and dry this winter. The drought's going to be expanding. It's going to be a pretty warm winter for you guys down here. There could be some cool shots maybe in states like Kansas and Missouri, but leaning warmer and drier this winter. Into the north, across portions of the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and Ohio Valley, like Minnesota, into Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. Cold and snowy this winter. We could have some warmer spells as well, but likely seeing more cold shots from the north, from Siberia, Canada, and Alaska. Snowstorms could be plentiful across this region, maybe even a memorable snowstorm or blizzard for this winter season. Mild and dry in the yellow here across Kentucky, West Virginia, the Carolinas of North and South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Mild and dry across these regions. As we go through the winter season, there will still be some precipitation, but it will be few and far between. And then finally, in the light blue area here for Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, the Connecticut area, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, you guys will have more of an average winter this season. There could be still some heavy snowstorms and a lot of rain, but likely leading to more of an average winter season for you folks over there in the Northeast. Northeast, and New England. Thank you all for following along on my winter forecast for 2024 and 25. I hope you liked it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for the latest weather information with videos and live streams this winter season right here on this channel. You have it right at your fingertips if you subscribe. Like the video down below by giving it a thumbs up. Smash that like button. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below, and I'll get to those after the video. And I hope everyone has a wonderful winter season out there this year.